Hey guys, welcome back to the Work Hard, Live Soft podcast, where I teach you how to build a successful business so you have the freedom to design a life you love. I'm excited for today's episode because I am bringing on my operations manager, Twila Atkins, who is going to share her insights of being the right hand of somebody who is always and actively trying to grow her company and just figure out what she's doing. It's going to be a very transparent episode because you will see some of the gaps within our company and some of the holes and just some areas where I may also even be experiencing some imposter syndrome. So I'm excited. We're going to talk about our team, some of the efficiencies and inefficiencies that we are consistently working on. So let's go ahead and hop right in. All right, guys, so welcome back. I want you all to meet Twila Atkins, who was actually first a client of mine, and she is a project manager. What is your official title? What does the PMP stand for? Project manager, pimp.
Project manager professional.
Oh. She is a professional. She's a phenomenal project manager. Her title for me is obviously operations manager. But I even remember like when you and I were working together in like a client coach capacity. And I think a little bit after that, I'm like, operations management to me is like just handling multiple projects at one time, which is, do you agree with that? Like now that you're...
I mean, yes and no, because technically projects have
an end and built impact is... always going, yeah.
Always going, but we can
essentially, yeah. Well, our launches are essentially projects because they do have end dates, yeah. So in terms of like sales and marketing and stuff like that, but I'm excited because she just thinks so phenomenally, and me naturally, I think operationally, and I do find that it can be challenging to find some people who also think like that and have a level of attention to detail and accuracy. Like, she operates at 99.99, and that 0.001 of error is just the human side, which we don't even really get to see that side often. It's coming out a little bit more, but not from an error standpoint. But anyhow, I would say she's a machine, but I don't even want to give her that because she'll want to operate as a machine. And I'm like, girl, you need to operate as a human. But in terms of the work that she does, it's very great and I love it. I want to use this episode to talk about our team retreat because I think this is where we really collaborated on how do we just get everything like back in order. And man, being a CEO sometimes it could be scary because I'm like, do I know what I'm doing? Am I doing the right thing? And I lean on you a lot to almost sometimes give me confirmation, but also to like give me ideas on like, how do you think that we can perform better? And I think sometimes, people might make the assumption that the CEO knows what to do or makes all of the decisions. And technically at the end of the day, like I can override something, but I lean on you a lot to use your expertise to say, here's how I think something can be more efficient. And here's my advice to you. And so I really do lean on you for that. So when we had our team retreat, it was really important for us to figure out all of our systems and our operations and our team. And I'm actually laughing because I'm like, we did that retreat and we made the decision to switch software. And now we're like, before we get into what we talked about on the retreat, let's talk about how do you handle situations where you're like, you think you built out the perfect system and then you start implementing and you're like, yo, we got to go back to the drawing board.
I mean, first of all, you really never know how things are going to work out. You just kind of have to give your best.
I mean, so maybe, okay, since we're in it, maybe we won't talk about that particular system, but in like generally speaking as a project manager, when you have designed, a system that you're like, this is, going to work based on what I'm seeing and you're into it, maybe halfway through, you're like, wait, we need to make some pivots or we might need to go back to the drawing board. How do you know when to make like executive decisions like that?
Well, generally in like project management terms, we call that like change management. Mm-hmm. And so once you have your goals set in your project, the minute that you start to deviate from that, you can tell that like it's not hitting the milestone. Like, it's 3 months later and you're still migrating, for example. That gives you the opportunity to like get together your stakeholders, which would be you, or our content manager who uses the software a lot and say, okay, we've deviated. We're not hitting what we thought was going to happen, and like come up with a plan to change course, but still make it so that we're not having scope creep, which is just project management term for saying that we're well.
Right. Yeah. How do you know when to make that decision? Like, how do you kind of like differentiate, okay, things aren't working, so we need to like go back to the drawing board or whatever, versus like people get nervous too early and they're trying to jump ship?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, it really comes down to when you set the project in the beginning, what you determined what success is going to look like. That you don't detail from the very beginning what it's going to look like, that makes it harder to tell when to pivot, which is why I think the first step that people skip a lot in doing their projects, which is getting really detailed. Like, people want to just start a project and just go, but like, taking that moment to really sit down and go define success at every corner, that's what helps us decide when we're gone off track.
Yeah. And how do you help me in situations where I'm like, F it, let's just throw it all away? Because I do have those moments, because it's like, I just don't want to waste time and money. And as a CEO, it's like, I'm trying to look at what is going to be most profitable. But when you have projects, like, you do have to take the time to test things out. And it's like, this is the advice that I give to my clients, where I'm like, okay, when you are working on your launch, like, you're not going to see an ROI within the first 3 weeks, maybe not even the first 6 weeks. Like, you got to wait until the full thing is done. You got to, maybe at 9 weeks is when you should start thinking. But how do you kind of talk me off the ledge when I'm like, we're 27 hours in and we haven't done what I wanted to do, even though we've mapped out a 60-day timeline?
Right. Okay, so stakeholder management, which I would view you as stakeholder, is basically making sure that I'm solution-based, which is very important. Like, I don't like to let anybody clue my in on something unless I've already come up with a plan to address it. Because if it comes to you first before I've had a chance to come up with a backup plan, and I stay ready with the backup plans, then you're very quick to be like, well, just forget it. We'll just scratch it. So I like to be solution based, which is like the minute that I come up with a plan to have risk management in place, to have a backup plan, and then a backup plan, and then another backup plan.
Yeah.
So for me, with youth and stakeholders like you, it's like, come to you with solutions.
100%. Yeah.
Because if you come to you with a problem, she's gonna scrap the whole thing.
I'm gonna throw the whole thing away, or I'm gonna throw you away, because I'm like, I don't want no problems, okay? And I think for me, it's not that I'm afraid of problems, right? Like, I'm okay with, like, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, the entire premise of being an entrepreneur is to solve problems. I don't like having decision fatigue, and that now you come to me and I have to step outside of what I'm focusing on to now solve a problem and look for solutions where we already allegedly like went through all of the potential problems and gaps and all of that. So I like that you're really intentional about, one, creating solutions. You're really solution oriented. And then for the most part, you go to everybody on the team and you're like, don't take anything to Maya with a problem. Even when we're onboarding, we're like, a big thing is just figure out 5 different solutions before even taking a problem to Maya.
Something that you touched on, like, it's not that even that, like, I don't want people to let you be apprised as to like what's going on in your own company, but it's also about like funneling. Like, at your level, you don't need to worry about mundane issues that the team can solve. And if we are not equipped to solve 90 to 80% of the stuff without you, then I don't even know why we're getting.
See, I love the way she thinks. Oh my God. Yeah, because I even think like recently with our new hire, she's really fresh, so we're still like training and stuff, like how to just do protocol and stuff. And you're like, don't put this in the general Slack channel, like just bring it to me, versus everybody don't need to know our problems. Like, let's figure out the solution. So I really like that. Okay, so thank you for answering those questions. Did you have something to add to that before I move forward?
Say, also to just like risk management perspective, which is that in projects, we never truly know 100% how something is going to go. All we can do is make a plan, be ready to pivot, and then have another plan if that doesn't go out. So I think that goes hand in hand with like supporting you and making sure that our support team is ready is that we anticipated everything that we can think of, our known unknowns, and then even coming up with a plan for something that we think potentially happen. That's also another, I think, crucial part in managing our campaigns and then also managing our team. Like, if we don't hit the goal that we want to hit in terms of registrations or whatever the case may be, that we have already come up with ways that we're going to pivot and that we're monitoring consistently on how things are progressing so that we do know when to pivot. Because if we're not monitoring how things are going, then we won't know until
okay, we should have done something. And I do think we've done a better job at that, because I feel like, I would say a year ago, maybe even like 6 months ago, it's like, we don't know that we don't hit our goals until after the project is done and we can't do anything about it. And I think it's like that because as you get more people on your team, there's more room for error because there's so much stuff that is filtered. And I got to a place where it's like, I need to be able to see. And I think I said this like month after month after month until you were finally like, let's just put everything inside of Notion. Notion, go ahead and cut us a check. But let's put everything.
Sponsor us.
Please sponsor us. Please. But let's go ahead and just put everything in one project management software. And so Maya can see everything high level, because I'm like, I shouldn't have to go to the content manager and say, what are the numbers for this? Or go to somebody who's supporting in sales and say, what's going on with it? Like, if I need to be able to bypass everybody and just open up one thing and be able to see like what is happening within the company. So I think that was something really big and that you supported me with for sure. And part of like us testing out different like software and platforms and all of that we've been through. So the entire purpose of the retreat, what I wrote out and like shared with the team, was establishing 2024 vision, goals, and milestones in terms of like our offers and our systems. So everybody was clear on the offers, everybody's clear on our systems and how we do things, and to really clearly define and develop the expectations, responsibility, and the roles of every team member, which I thought was important because, again, like when you have so many different moving parts, it's like who's doing what. But by the grace of God, I also just really attract people on my team who have a willingness to step in when there's a gap. But the issue with that is that there's sometimes some overlap. So we wanted to just define like who is doing what, right? Like when we see that there's a fire here, who's responsible for putting out this fire? Like you have to have the willingness to do it if you need to step in, but we can't have 3 people trying to solve one problem. We need to know like who's supposed to do it. So and then talking about just exposing like any bottlenecks that we have in our company, like what is stopping us from getting more clients, or what's stopping us from getting our clients to the finish line when we want to increase our client rate of success. So I broke down the day into 4 different segments, and I thought it was really like fun and interesting, like how we collaborated on this. I really made it like a full assignment. So I broke the day down into the company, and I wanted to see their perspective on how do you describe the company? Like, what do you, like, how would you describe what we do? How would you describe who we work with? Do you know at least 3 of our core values? This for me was important because it communicated to me, like, am I as a CEO doing a good enough job at communicating where the heck these people are even working at and why they're doing what they're doing, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing was I wanted to get their perspective on what their role was in the company. So I'm going to share all of the questions, but I'm just going to share the breakdown. So the breakdown was the company, your role, the team. I wanted to see, do you even know who your coworkers are? And then the big picture vision, like now that we've established where you work, who you are, and who else you're working with, now what is the big picture vision of the company? So before I go into any of that, tell me, what would you say was like your favorite part, and what do you think was the most impactful part about what we did for the retreat?
My favorite part was seeing how everyone interpreted what the company did and what they do. But what was really funny was like trying to see everyone describe other people.
Yeah. That was really fun. It was interesting. So when I did this, I'm like, do I want to get this as freebie? I don't know. But when I did this, I asked them the questions, but instead of letting everybody talk out loud. I had it in a Google Doc, and everybody had their own Google Doc where they put in their answers. The reason I did this is I didn't want anybody's response to be influenced by somebody else. I really needed them to think for themselves and be responsible for their own answer, right? Like, if you're responsible for knowing the visions of, or the values of the company, like, you don't get to copy off of Twyla's response to be like, I was going to say those same things. Like, no, you weren't. You're like,
Copy and paste.
Right. So here are the 4 questions that I asked about the company to everybody. Question 1, how would you describe Built to Impact and what we do? And for the most part, I think everybody did pretty good. I mean, it's like...
That was, I mean, if not, that would have been really concerning.
That, like, you have a salary here and you don't know what we do. All right.
We're going to have a talk after this.
Yeah. Okay. So how would you describe Built to Impact and what we do? Second question under the company was, what are 3 of our core values? Third question was, what core value do you think is really important to work at Built to Impact? Like, what core value do you think is really important to have to work at Built to Impact? And 4, how would you describe our target audience? So I thought this was really good. How did you think this part went? And it was a while now, but...
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a while ago. But I think that this was really, really crucial, though, because if we had not done this, then we really wouldn't been able to gauge, especially from the content marketing team and the sales team, actually everybody, because even the client success, like, if you don't know who we are targeting and what we stand for, then there's a big gap on how you show up for the company, because then you're not in alignment with how we execute on a day-to-day. So, I mean, just even having people describe our clients was kind of fun to see, but also really important because it let us know, are you communicating what the vision is and what we stand for as a company? And then are we retaining and following that information? And then from my perspective, am I holding everybody accountable to that?
Yeah.
Am I bullying everybody to do their job correctly? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. How often do you think we need to do things like this? And then how often do you think they need to be reminded, if at any point outside of a retreat, like, here's a reminder of our vision, or here's a reminder of our values?
Well, I like to, and when I set up one of our Notion pages, please sponsor us. I try to put accountability questions at the very forefront so that every time that they got onto their task, onto their page, that's the first thing that they saw. I think that this is a good annual set of questions, but as far as keeping it in the forefront, I feel like almost every quarter.
Yeah.
Honestly, every 3 months we sit down and we're like, hey, just check in. Is everybody still in alignment? Is there any confusion? Because going back to our project example, if we wait until it's too late to pivot, then we've already missed our point. So we need those KPIs, those key success, criteria, our performance data to say, okay, here are how we are performing. Here's our knowledge of what's going on, instead of waiting till people aren't performing and we're this close to firing them. Well, we could have had that conversation quarterly and say, do you understand what you're doing?
Yeah.
Do you know what you're accountable for? Because like you said earlier, we have people, I mean, we like a multifaceted, multi-talented team, and we should have a primary person that does everything. And then we have backup people who can support, but we have to have clear delineation of who does what. And if that doesn't happen, who's ready to step in and fulfill?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I also a quick note. I also think I could do a better job of intentionally ahead of time scheduling check-in calls with people. I know you do them, but I don't want the only time I have calls with our team is when I'm reprimanding them or something like that, or just whatever it is. So I think just maybe quarterly check-ins. I think I'm very non-committal, and so monthly is a little bit too much for me, but I think quarterly.
I think quarterly too. And I think too, one of our favorite things that I've really tried to, just speaking about meetings and collaboration, is that we have more conversations with our team members as a whole versus a lot of one-on-one conversations.
Yeah.
I'm very adamant about marketing kickoff calls that like we have at least one phone call before we start anything. Because when we have everybody together, whether working on a project or just in running the business, we get to figure out as a whole where our gaps are. And if like sometimes people are afraid to ask a question, or sometimes you don't really realize that somebody's working in a bubble until you put all of them together and you're like, wow, no one's talking about this. Or the people who work on the content is unclear of what happens on the sales calls because there's too many one-on-one calls. So, but
I do think we've done a better job at like everybody just come to the team meeting. Like it might not be relevant to you, but just stay out. That reminds me of corporate Erin when she's like, this might not be relevant to you, but we do encourage you to stay for the full 7 hours. And it's like, what? But our meetings are never that long because again, I'm very non-committal and I don't have the mental capacity to talk to anybody.
You will absolutely be like, I'm done with this conversation.
I'm actually, you guys give me a recap. I'm going to go take a nap. Okay, so those are the questions for the company. How would you describe the company? What are 3 of our core values? Although they need to know all of them, I just do that as a gauge. What core value do you think is important in order to work here? And how would you describe our target audience? Then the next segment was your role. And so the questions that I ask here are, what do you think is your biggest contribution to Built to Impact? And I think this is important because it's vital for people to understand that I'm not just hiring them to do tasks, but I am hiring you to legit add value to the company. And so if you're not able to articulate like how you add value to the company and what your biggest contribution is, you might not see yourself as important. And then you might not show up as that. You might think, oh, it doesn't really matter if I do it because I'm not the operations manager, or I'm not this or whatever.
That's one of the reasons why I absolutely love this question, because I think when you are doing something for a period of time, it's so easy to just kind of like, I don't know, be an autopilot and forget about the value as a whole that you provide, which is, I don't remember what it was, but we had, I don't know if it was like a call or a testimonial or it was Impact Weekend where somebody was talking about like how the Build to Impact, my Elious, our program, like changed their life. And I was like in the Slacks, like Slack DMs, like the Slack channel going, this is why we need to nail the campaign. This is why what we do is important, because if we don't successfully execute on a campaign, then we don't reach out to the right client and we don't help change and impact their life. And I am very passionate about this. And so I think that having everybody understand how their contribution allows us to have a better and greater impact on each client we work with and essentially help change their lives. Right. I mean, it's really cool when you get a text message from someone, they're like, I had a 5-figure launch. Like, that's huge. And that's why knowing what you do is important.
So good. Yeah. Like even we got a message today, like as we've been recording some episodes, one of our clients had a $61,000 launch, which was her biggest day ever. And this is from us doing the international retreat where it's like, it's so easy to be like, are we good enough to do an international retreat? Do we know what we're doing? But it's like, yes, just put the thing out there, do the thing. And now somebody is $61,000 richer on a casual Sunday. And we love that for her.
I love that for her.
We love it. I've noticed that more and more women are wanting to start their business, but the logistics of building a business is causing them to hesitate or procrastinate. Is that you? Be honest. You know you have a skill set or a message inside of you that can transform someone's life or business, but there's so much noise online that you don't know where to start. Okay, here's the advice I'd give to you and what we've done for our clients. First, you need to get really clear on what you want to be known for. What is your expertise? What are your top skill sets? You need to get clear on your message and how you want to package it. Next, you need to create an offer that can accomplish 2 things. It needs to make you money and it needs to make an impact. Then you need to create a marketing strategy that's going to get you in front of your dream clients. And lastly, you need to implement a system so your revenue can become predictable month after month. This is exactly how we help our clients and been able to get them results. Like one of our clients, Tiaya, who generated over $17,000 from taking her expertise as a writer and launching a program for inspiring authors. Or Jennifer, who took her skills as a school teacher and generated $30,000 in 30 days by helping other school teachers make money as a tutor. And those are just 2 of hundreds of examples of our clients who have been through our framework. you can start building your brand and getting your first set of clients within the next 90 days with the right support and the right focus. If you've been looking for coaching, community, and expert guidance so you can take your business to the next level, stop feeling so confused online, apply to work with us, go to builttoimpact.com/ready. Let's hop on a call and take your business to the next level. We're talking about everybody in their role, and one of the questions that we said was list out all of the tasks in your that you do in your role and which ones produce the most outcome. And that we felt this was important because it highlighted how much work everybody was actually doing in the company. And Ethan.
Yeah, and I was giving our content manager her flowers. She's amazing. We love her. One of the things that, and we'll use her as an example, by having her highlight all of the things that she does, it really was easy to tell, okay, is she at capacity? But also, like, is she doing the things that are within her zone of genius? And is she doing things that she does well? You know, we all step up and we back each other up as needed. Mm-hmm. But are we pulling away from what makes her the GOAT, which she is, at what she does, because she's doing other things that could fall under another person's responsibility or somebody else's plate? Like what our content manager does, I call her the marketing maestro. Like the way her brain works is phenomenal. But if we have her bogged down doing tasks that are she's good at, but she's not like necessarily great at, then I feel like we're watering down her talent. And that's one thing I liked about this question, is that it really lets us know, are we utilizing our people to their strengths to the best of their ability, or are we, hurting ourselves by stretching people too thin?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And also just seeing like, not even where do we need to maybe like reallocate these tasks, or like, should we delegate this to somebody else? It's like, do we even need to do it at all within the company, right? Like, does this move the needle forward? Like, what is this task responsible for accomplishing? And if it's not doing anything that's major, it's like, let's just get rid of it, right? Because always really just trying to find that balance of, what's the most amount of money we can make and the least amount of work we can do, not from a place of laziness, but from a place of efficiency. So if this task doesn't make sense for this role, does it even make sense to now put it in somebody else's plate?
That's a great point, because at Built to Impact, we believe in working smarter, not harder, because why would we do that?
I mean, we kind of want to work soft at Built to Impact. I'm not even going to lie. But if we're going to work hard, let it be at things that's going to produce results. So those are the 4 questions. I think that was really eye-opening for everybody in their role of like, I can contribute the most at Built to Impact when I do the things that are bolded and eliminate some of the things that are not bolded, and then just make sure I'm not spending too much time on the things that aren't bolded. So then we have segment 3 of the retreat, the team, where I said, list each team member along with their role and responsibility, because it's like, I also need you to know what your coworkers are doing. And when you're going to them asking questions, are you going to the appropriate person for the things that you need? So I think that was really important there. The second question was, is there a role that you think needs to be filled or better fulfilled? What is it and why? The third question is, what do you believe we do well as a team? And I think everybody kind of said like the same thing. We do work really well as a team, or a really good company culture. And then the fourth question is, how can we improve as a team? So I want to get your insight on some of these questions.
Okay, so what I really liked, and I have to look at this because they're really good, but my brain was running a mile a minute. I think that one of my favorite things about this question about the team is getting people's perspective on what role they think could be fulfilled. Because again, we're talking about working in a bubble, right? Everybody is in their own department, because, we have several departments within the company. And sometimes just like when we're running a project and we have everyone building the project plan within their own corners, is that when we come back together, I'll use the migration, the systems migration as an example, still a sore subject for me. When we have one department flushing out how the systems will work, then we realized that we haven't accounted for, okay, well, how do we track sales? Or how easy is it to create content without having a specific browser? Things like that happens when you do things within a bubble.
You're so stupid.
When we do things within a bubble, but like asking this team that same question provided that same clarity, like what roles do we think we don't have fulfilled?
You're so dumb.
Oh God, it's so triggering. I'm gonna need therapy. Can I file for workers' comp therapy?
I at one point seriously considered hiring like a high performance coach or a therapist for the company, similar to like how in the show Billions, how they have somebody there for like everybody. I'm like, listen, the way these launches be going, the way systems and software be going, but yeah.
Oh man, but that was a really good question to ask everybody, because then it's like, yes, we think, okay, I think, well, I won't use me as an example because I look at everybody as a whole. So let's say the content writer, our copywriter, excuse me, his ability to capture your voice and the vision and the voice of the company and your voice specifically has been really well. But like, he might be encountering an issue that we would never think about. And so for him, he didn't have an example, but I'll just use him. For him to be able to say like, hey, actually, I think we need X, Y, Z. That's something that you and I may not have thought about because you're not in his specific role. So I thought that was very helpful. I think our client success manager at that time, who was also amazing. I just love everybody that we work with.
Yeah.
I just
shout out to the Ghost Impact team.
Shout out to VTI team. She was also like, hey, we could use more admin on certain things because we want to make sure things don't fall through the cracks. So that was one of the most insightful questions that we asked during the retreat.
Yeah, I do think that was really good. And it was good to see our values being instilled in terms of contribution. Because we want everybody to contribute their ideas, right? Like whether we can take it into account right now, or maybe it's just something we say, this can't be a priority right now. It's still important that everybody on the team feels confident enough to contribute ideas. And that's how, to me, like that is one of the most valuable things about hiring thinkers and not just doers, right? Like when our copywriter can, yes, you can do and just write the copy, but when you can say, I think we need to do an extra email, or should we also send out a text, or is the software the right, like whatever it is, just contributing ideas. So I love being able to see our values come out in the team members, like when they're actually doing the work.
I think that's also a testament to you as a leader. I know that sometimes you give yourself flack for not having the corporate background per se, but I think that that's something that is hard for people who even have been in management for years and years, is to create an environment where people feel comfortable enough to say, hey, actually, I think XYZ. So I think that's something that you did really well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've received that. How can we improve as a team was a question as well. I honestly don't even remember like what the overall consensus was. I think it was more so everybody being in the loop. So that way things weren't so segmented by department, but it's like sales and marketing has to know how the programs run. The programs, like fulfillment team has to know how many new clients are like expected to come in after launch and all of that. So I think that was probably one of the biggest improvements.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that. All right. So we got company, we have your role, we have the team, and then big picture vision. For every other one, I asked 4 questions. For this one, I asked 5. So the first one was, what's something you'd really like to see for Built to Impact? And it was really nice to see like everybody's vision. Yeah. And honestly, as a CEO, it can be a little bit intimidating because it's like, I think also because I consistently say that I'm not really a vision person, and maybe I need to stop like saying that out loud and affirming that. But it's like when I see other people's vision, it's like, okay, am I able to create a company that allows people to grow into this vision? So it can feel like really intimidating, even though it's a beautiful thing. Like, I'm so grateful that I have people on my team who do see Build to Impact as a big company and see Build to Impact as a company that can impact hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. But then there's that little voice in my mind sometimes that's like, you better figure all this stuff out. So one, you can keep these people. And two, you have to create something big enough to be able to fulfill the vision that other people have on the team.
I think that when it comes to that, there's just a level of like release that you have to do, because no one really knows where anyone is going to end up. We can just create an environment where we allow them to grow, and hopefully they grow with us. And then sometimes, you know, if their path leads them to another place, then I think that is just a testament to the company and to you that you continue to play a role even as a coach in a senior role, that you foster an environment that people grow and they expand. And I don't think that we should view that as a negative or thing or anything like that. I just think that sometimes as we continue to have clarity and transparency within ourselves and each other, then that makes it easier for people to tell, okay, has my time ended? I am very passionate. I say all the time, it's never too late to change your mind.
Yeah.
Like may we all have the spirit of being like, if this is no longer serving me, or this is great, but I am ready for a different pot, so to speak, to bloom in, then creating an environment, I think that people can have that space to evolve is something that we should be proud of.
I really like that perspective. And honestly, I think within the last 6 months, that's been a personal thing, like something that I've gotten better at personally, like being okay with releasing people and not feeling like I have to hold on to people forever, and just really valuing that season and whatever I was able to receive from them and whatever I was able to offer up to them in terms of value. So even though it still can feel a little intimidating, but I happily release people to be the best version of themselves in the environment that can foster that. And so for some seasons, Build to Impact is that. And then sometimes we get to, you know, points where it's like you need to now transition to another environment to continue growing. So being all woo-woo and just lovely and spiritual, I love that for us. So the second question is, how do you play into that vision? I really like that as well. So again, they're kind of seeing, if I have this vision, like, how am I accountable for what I'm doing here? Oh, I need to go back to talk about accountability questions too, but I'll finish the vision questions. Question 3 is, how should we celebrate our success? I like that, because I always like to make people feel loved and celebrated. Which brings us to question 4, how would you like to be celebrated? Twyla always accepts gifts and money. Gifts is dead last on my love languages, so it's not something that is a number one thought that comes to mind for people. But then we have Twyla, where that's
my first
number one. It's her first one.
It's
so
my
she
first
reminds me to gift people. It's like, it's part of our SOP for clients, so we just send them gifts anyway. But like for team, I'm like, I don't even know when you started. I don't know when your birthday is, but Twyla reminds me. I love my team so much, but it's just making sure they get a consistent paycheck, honestly, is my number one thing. And then Twyla comes in.
I love it here. Like, her favorite color is purple, and she likes this, and she
and
likes
her
that.
shoe size is 8.5.
And her shoe size is 7.5, and she wants this. I like to keep a running list of things that I hear people say, and then write it down. And then plus I like making the company environment fun, and I like making BTI and Maya as a whole look good. And I think I think you have enough on your plate, and just having somebody else come in and look at the mundane, not mundane, because people's likes are not mundane.
No, I know what you're saying.
Details and saying like, hey, I think we should do this. Although I think sometimes you wish I would use gifts as my love language a little less.
Right. I'm like, how much are we spending on gifts? Like, I have to get the team Christmas presents. But I do enjoy seeing the result of it, right? I think in my mind it's like, oh, it's something I don't want to make a decision on, but you do a really good job at just like, hey, what's the budget? Here are the things I picked out. And I'm like, why do we need silicone makeup brushes? And I use it like more than anything. I've already lost the headphones that I bought myself for Christmas through the team, but everybody else uses it like on the calls and stuff. So I love that. So we celebrate our team members. That's important. And then the final question, you know, because we just really believe in community, and we have a really good, like, I feel like it's toxic to say we have a family feel. So I try not to say it, but we have a good community here at Built to Impact internally with the team. So I said, is there anything you wish we did more as a team? Books, retreats, conferences, devotionals, etc. I thought that was a good one. I do think we could do like learn more together.
Yeah. And I know that's something on our to-do list that we plan on get to this year, is like speaking to what you were talking about earlier about like growing either together or in parallel with our team. Is, are we giving them enough opportunities to grow? Are we learning about, like, are we sending them to conferences? Are we reading the same materials? I know you and I are big on self-development. And so like having that same mindset of learning and improving, that we can always be better and not becoming complacent. I think that was really interesting to see people be like, yeah, I'd like to go and learn more about what I do.
Overall, it was really good to see the team's perspective on things, because it is really easy to be like, here's what Maya wants, here's the goal, here's what we need to do for the launch, everybody go do it. And I think everybody's fine with it. I don't think anybody on the team is like, I need my voice to be heard more, because we already create the environment for that. Mm-hmm. But I think it was important for me to understand how they were thinking through their role and how they contribute and how they see other people on the team, so we could just all get on the same page about things.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so before I wrap this up, I want to share then, okay, I need to find like our org chart or whatever, because I don't even know if org chart is really the right word, but it's like I actually have like 4 different roles on here. And so how I was showing up is I was only showing up as a CEO. And so for me, like the CEO is responsible for establishing the vision and then ensuring that everybody on the team knows what the vision is. One, I think I was kind of just like not even doing a great job at that. But I think it's honestly because I wasn't fully clear on what I wanted for Built Impact. Like I was kind of clear, but I was nervous. Or do I want to keep coaching? Do I want to do digital products? And so I think that I created a great team with a great culture because of my values naturally coming out. But in terms of vision, it's like, am I encouraging my team to think in terms of vision? But I also had to realize, like, okay, you knowing the vision, having everybody on the team know the vision, like that's not your only job. So when I answered the question of how do you contribute the most, it's like, girl, you are responsible for the company making money. Like you are the sales manager, but I never identified as the sales manager in my company. So I did not hold myself accountable to those things outside of like Impact Weekend.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the ways, I mean, I think you sell yourself short all the time. But it's like we forget that your strengths in what you do as a coach is still something that you still do for the company, which is like, is our messaging clear? You're a marketing genius. And so I think that this exercise kind of helped you remember, like, I'm a marketing genius for my clients, and I'm also a marketing genius here at my company. And these are the other 3 roles that I do.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you affirming me. It's easy to definitely get in my head. And I think as like when you transition into a CEO, it is easy to forget the other parts, right? It's like, I need to be the responsible CEO and I'm showing up to the meeting in my blazer. And it's like, okay, girl, but you still have to create the content. You still have to like proofread the copyright. You still have to do the things that got your company to where it is. Mm-hmm. And I just like to be mindful of like not over delegating to the point where some areas may be like neglected. So this was really just a reminder for me, like areas I need to step in. And so for every role, I just asked like 3 accountability questions. And I'm just going to give an example of it versus like, well, there'll be 27 questions. It just, we don't need to do that.
I love these questions so much.
So thank you. You want me to share yours?
Sure.
Okay. So operations management run by Twyla. The description is determining and improving the health of the company by ensuring everything is running efficiently accurately and profitably across all departments. We also went through as a team and we were like, does everybody agree on this description for the role? Like, are you clear on what this person is responsible for? So we have the description and, you know, we have KPIs, but it's like, how are we holding ourselves accountable? So I asked everybody 3 to 4 accountability questions based on their role. So her accountability questions are, how is the company performing based on our target goals, which obviously means she needs to know what the target goals are. How can the company perform better? In parentheses, we have improvement plans. And then the third question is, does everyone have everything they need to perform at their best? Which you do a phenomenal job at all of these. So shout out to you.
Say more nice things.
You said what? Say more nice things. You funny. And then we'll do the copywriter, for example. So copywriter, their responsibility, writing copy for sales and marketing assets using Maya's voice to drive engagement, trust, and sales. And then accountability questions. Am I clear on the goals and objectives of the upcoming campaign? Really good. And if you haven't listened to the episode where I talked about how we prepare for campaigns, this will also kind of provide a level of clarity. The second question is, do I feel confident that the copy aligns with Maya's voice? And then third, do I feel confident that the copy will get us closer to our objective of engagement, trust, and or sales?
Yeah. And one thing that I really, really, really like about those questions is that I think it helps people reframe what they do. Because we're talking about this whole episode, like, is everybody clear on what they do? Is everyone clear on what they do? But it's easy to have a job description, but it's harder to make sure that the outcomes and your output actually translates. Like, yes, I am the copywriter for the company, but like, am I doing this in her voice? Am I clear on the campaigns? Those are things that are very easy to get lost in the sauce. And that's one of my favorite things about these questions is that day to day or quarter to quarter, as we will now be doing, that you look at these questions that you're like, wow, am I actually delivering on this? And that made it really tangible and less than a theoretic job description that you saw when you started working and you haven't looked at since.
Yeah. I like that. I think, at the end of the day, I want everything to be quantifiable in terms of, can we measure whether or not you're meeting the standard, right? Which is why we have standard operating procedures and why we have KPIs. Like, this is a clear yes or no. And I don't want anybody coming to the table saying like, I feel like I did my job well. Like, because I say this to my clients all the time too, when we say like, how was their launch? Well, I feel like it didn't go as well, or I feel like it did go well. And it's like, well, let's look at the actual data. Like, did you hit your goal? Did you do this? Did you do that? So that way we can eliminate the I feel like and just say like, are you doing your job and hitting your goals? So then we know where we can improve. So.
Because as Maya says all the time, feelings is not data. It's just not.
That is true. Well, not anything that I can scale the company with, at least. Alrighty, so that's really it for today's episode. If you think that we're awesome and amazing, we want you to reach out to us. If you have a multi-6 or 7 or even 8-figure company and you want us to come in and do a VIP day and get your operations in order, because I mean, my brain alone, I got to give it to myself. I'm amazing. Her brain alone, got to give it to her. She's amazing. But our brains together, come here, girl. Bring me your brain.
I mean, guys,
it's just.
You guys are getting like really great behind the scenes. This is the kind of stuff that she talks about with her 6-figure CEO Amplify Mastermind clients on our international retreat. So the fact that you're even getting this on the podcast,
chef kiss. So I hope that you do take a lot from today's episode and really just implement it. Like, obviously the purpose of this podcast is we genuinely want you to build a successful business. We genuinely want you to be able to live soft as a result. But if you are wanting that extra support, just reach out to us, team@builttoimpact.com. We want to test out like doing some VIP days together with some clients, and I think it's just going to be fun because we get to operate in our zone of genius. So it's going to be very fun, very sexy. All right, y'all. Well, until next time, let's give it up for Twyla. Let us know what your biggest takeaway was in the comments. And until next time, continue to work hard so you can live soft.